Hello, how are you? I'm Jackie. If we haven't met yet, I'm pleased to make your acquaintance. If you are familiar with me and I'm familiar with you, then I'm glad to see you and you're back here again. So, what am I chatting about this time? Well, I'm calling this video Spot Fires, and you're going to see why in a second. Um, Let me start with this. People in general, and you may or may not be part of this, but you may have observed it. People are focused on things that are happening out there around them in the world. So this is happening, that's happening, lots of terrible, bad, negative things happening. And some of it I agree with. In my last video, I shared how there are many toxic things that our body mind complex reacts and registers to as being toxic, and how those toxic things are affecting us mega profoundly. And if you want to have any kind of health, peace, inner freedom, then we need to become super selective and aware of what is toxic to us, around us, and then we need to be able to select it out so we can bring in greatness to us, because you deserve it, we deserve it, I deserve it. Yeah. The name of that particular video is called Why Don't We See This as Being Toxic? And I'm going to link it somewhere in here, below, above, beside, or wherever you find this video. And that's important because I'm following on from that video with what I think will be of help to you right now with this video, so you can use them both combined, because this, what I'm talking about again today, is what I have seen almost exploding in incidences the last few weeks. So the more we can enable ourselves with the understanding, the insight, the wisdom as to what's going on, and maybe why it's going on, and then some tools and resources for how we can navigate it, then we can not only mitigate the effects to you, but we can actually help change this dramatically and shift through it and out of it. So we can actually help co-create the type of reality that we want, just by us being here, observing this and being aware of what's going on. So getting back to why we're here. Some people don't realize it, but they are attached to, entangled with, and I'm going to call it a spot fire, because it's a way that this is intuitively coming up for me. And because a spot fire is something that, it flares up, it's usually off another bigger fire. It can look menacing, it can catch you by surprise, it can be scary, but often they die out, or they're easy to address and then they kind of die down, they're not an issue. So sometimes people don't realize it, but they are attached to, entangled with, a spot fire of some kind. So whatever that is, it could be a spot fire, can be a thing that they've heard someone say was going to happen. A spot fire could be something that they saw being built and that it's going to be for this, that, and the other. It doesn't matter, what the place, action, thing, person, etc. it is. The thing is that it has their full attention right now, and it's what they are going to keep fixating, focusing on, and talking about. When they talk about it, when they present it, it's going to be of a really high fiery nature. And sometimes you might feel this as being high energy, panicked, scattered, tense. When they talk or present that thing that they're focused on, that's very much how you could notice it. But the thing is that they will keep expecting that others will come and look at this thing that is their spot fire. It is going to feel really important to them, that not only to them, but to them, that you come and look and listen to them and read. And especially if it's something that's posted, read what they've posted, whether it be words or a video or whatever. They'll be like, did you read that? Have you seen that? That's bad. It's important to know here that they're, And I want you to stick with me right to the end because there's some important segues I'm going to go into, right? Stick with me. It's important to know here that their particular fight flight aspect, or the working part of their nervous system, which is known as a sympathetic aspect, that is the one that is predominant at this point. And it enables that person, it compels that person to fixate on the spot fire that's just flared up. And the mechanism of the sympathetic nervous system says, look at that, focus on that, don't let that go, right? So they'll not only want you to look at their spot fire, but they'll want you to look at it again and again and again with them, possibly talking about it, agreeing with them that it's an issue. You might not see this as even being a spot fire, but they will. We each see and experience things super individually and uniquely. We need to remember that. So a spot fire for you will not be a spot fire for others, right? Tread gently. Just recognize someone is not in a very good place when they get into this way. So they too will almost, not understand if you go to look away, you're focusing on something else. They'll be like, but what about my spot fire? What about my issue that's over there? That's a fire and it's coming. You just can't look away. That's important. That's quite often what they'll be like, right? Their mannerisms, what they want to, the way that they say that to you. Anything that has the potential to cause you harm is something for us to be aware of. And if necessary, we need to be able to do something about that, right? If there is a spot fire coming, someone draws your attention to it, and that it starts growing into a bit of a bigger fire, do you stand and wait, fixated, watching the spot fire, watching, looking until it gets bigger and bigger, nearer and nearer to you, stuck in fear, stuck in sympathetic mode until it's reached you, and then you're like, oh crap, there's a fire here and it's on me? Or do you become aware of it, decide, this might affect me? Whether that's information that you just are aware of, you rationally see that that could become an issue for you, whether it's coming in your direction or you're recognizing other connections, other synchronicities that tells you that could very well come in and around me. Or it might be that it instinctually is realized within you, right? So you want to go into a calm action mode. This is your other option, right? You could go into a calm action mode. You could click into gear and then continue to move on with your life because you're addressed it. And that would be experiencing that spot fire in parasympathetic mode. So calm, relaxed, calm mode, right? It's unsafe to see a spot fire and then just stand there fixating on it, asking others to come and stand and stare at it too while it comes to you. And that's essentially what's happening in theory right now. Lots of, here's my big issue, and I see that it's scary and I want you to come and be scared with me because I think it's urgent and important that you do that. And I don't understand if you don't. Why wouldn't you do that? That's a lot of the energy that's coming out now. And that's a lot of the kinds of experiences that people are getting from other people. Sure, it's showing up with different actions and different words and different conversations and everything, but it is showing up mega, okay? As an example, and I'll give you one for me personally that I had very recently. Someone was sharing information about a group of people, and it was sharing it into a group of people. So there was this group of people who it was speculated were going to be doing something to another group of people. The storyline was pretty brutal and it was invasive. And the person presenting that speculated story, that was their spot fire. They were really triggered and they wanted others to feel them and join the triggeredness, the horror of the story, right? So the story is spot fire. They were the holders of the spot fire. And they not only felt that it was important to present the spot fire, but they couldn't let it go. And they really felt that other people needed to be involved in that. But there were many in the group that were like, I don't want to see that spot fire. That's stressful. It doesn't serve me, doesn't serve any purpose for me to look at. How does this enhance me? What good is it going to do me? What am I meant to do about this? So then others were getting upset about this spot fire that was being presented. They were getting triggered. So this situation of someone seeing a spot fire and thinking, this is really important, then sharing it numerous times and talking about it and also expecting it to be important to others didn't work well. And that's a key point. The expectation, the judgment, this is a spot fire, it is very important. You should feel that this is important. Why don't you feel something? This is important. It's almost like, well, there's something wrong with you. But remember, that is the fight flight aspect of the nervous system. That's it talking. That's what's going to come from that. So you can kind of know that that's one thing that might come from those kinds of experiences, just to give you a heads up. People got pretty upset. And then there was very little insight into what was actually happening at a deeper level, or what people could do on an individual level to navigate that experience differently. So, how do you know if it's necessary for you to know something more about a spot fire or to know more about something else, right? To put it in another way, someone says, here's a spot fire. You need to know it's there. How do you know if it's necessary, if you need to do something about that? There's, one of the purposes of our entire body mind complex, one of the biggest systems that we have is instincts and intuition. It's kind of like one big system, but we give it lots of different words, right? It will either say to you, I don't need to do anything about that at all. It won't involve me. Let's move on. That's what, when instinct and intuition is working properly, and you access that information, which is easy to do, that's one of the responses it can give you, just like that. I don't need to do anything. It's not going to involve me. I can move on. The second one that you could get from that part of you is, I don't know. I'm going to keep my eye on it. The feeling is it hasn't finished changing and evolving in that situation. So I'm going to come back to it and look at it later, and then I'll know if there's anything that I need to do. But still, you can then move on, right? Or the third one is, yes, I actually need to take action here, and I'm going to do this today and tomorrow to prepare, and then I'm going to move on. So it's like, I'm going to take action, deal with it, and then it's done. I don't have to worry about it again after that. But either way, you do have the ability to get access to all of that functioning. So how do you get to this place? Firstly, know that this is automatically a part of you. It's not some special little program that we've got to go pull out of like universal consciousness and pop it in somewhere to the body mind complex and then fire it up and turn it on. You were born with these capabilities. Think of it like being on a volume dial. There's several dials and switches to it. For a lot of people, there'll be some of those dials and switches that are completely turned off. Some of them are like down to 2 or 3, and you might have a couple that sit at 4 or 5. So we are barely even using any of our intuitive and instinctive abilities as a human race, as it begins with, to start with, right? Uh, and we're even as human beings now, we're struggling to comprehend if we had all of the dials turned up to the right levels for us, what we could possibly access. So these kind of 3 or 4 basic functionings that I just gave you on how we can use this internal navigation system to be able to know whether a spot fire is something that we need to um, pay attention to or do anything about, that's an easy peasy one. That's something that we are designed to be able to do effortlessly, easily, right? The other thing that you can do, which I highly recommend, and it can take some practice, is trusting in your instinctive ability to know what you need to do. It does get easier, I promise. Act on your instincts and intuitive insights every single time. Get into the habit of not betraying yourself because this happens a lot. So, in other words, notice that your instincts, quite often felt as gut feelings, are telling you to not do this particular thing. And then you go and do it anyway. There's a lot of that happening right now, by the way. That is a betrayal of self because you are betraying your internal navigation system, which is you. Okay, there's not a system separate from you. This is you. If you, for whatever reason, say don't listen, and this all happens to everybody, I've done it my share of times. If for whatever reason you don't listen, trust, and then act on that instinctive and intuitive navigation system, and then you have an experience that you didn't really quite like, it didn't turn out very nice or the way that you'd hoped because you didn't follow that inner navigation system. Your big thing that you need to do then is learn from the experience. And next time, follow it. Okay, that absolutely does get easier. Quite often what I'll see people doing is blaming their intuition, and then they pull away even further from that entire system, sabotaging themselves even more. So learn from it, lean into it, continue on. Don't make a big deal about it. All right, so to recap, you will use your internal guidance system to establish if you need to look at something that somebody else says to you, oh, I have a spot fire issue and I need you to come and look at it. You might not even feel it's an issue. You might feel it's an issue, but not something that you need to focus on right now. You also might need to hold a boundary or two with them, healthy boundaries, right? Because we need to remember this person is in fight flight. They can be insistent and pushy and panicked, okay? Instead of triggering to that, you can learn to say, and I'll give you a couple of examples. No thanks, I don't want to focus on that. And then your energy must say, I've moved on from that conversation. Don't pause and wait for them to have a conversation about it or for them to come back at you. So you then have to explain yourself. There's a full stop at the end of all of these statements. So no thanks, I don't want to focus on that. Another one could be, I don't feel that that's something I need to be concerned with right now. I do appreciate that you might feel it's important for you though. Full stop. And the last one that I could use, remember I'm a Gemini, so I can tend to be a little bit wordy at the best of times. I'm being really selective with what I put my attention to these days. I can see that this concerns you, however, it's not something that I can focus on right now. And then your energy says full stop. And I guarantee you they will feel that full stop and then they'll move on. Or craft your own. Have fun crafting your own and use them. Walk around the house using them. Say them to yourself in the mirror. You will become the expert of really kind of just asserting your boundaries when it comes to that. And it's lots of fun and it's good for you. The last bit I want to go into, I have a really cool technique that can help if you're experiencing this kind of situation from somebody else's spot fire that they just won't let go of and it's affected you. Or maybe you've been affected by something and you've actually realized, holy crap, I've created my own spot fire event out of this. Let's say there's someone in your group that keeps sharing something about a topic and it's really bothered you, okay? You don't want to focus on it. It feels quite toxic to you, and you realize that this person is obviously really stressed, like so many others, and that this is what they're just hooked into right now, okay? It's maybe been suggested to them that they not share their spot fires into the group because of the high fire drama energy that it carries. And because they are experiencing sympathetic mode of their nervous system, they're actually really not in a good place to be able to even hear that. It doesn't register for them. So they don't act on it like you would if you were in parasympathetic mode, calm, chilled, relaxed, which means that they don't stop sharing. They just keep rolling on through with those sharings of the group because their nervous system says, this is an issue, we have to share it. I need you to look at it. This is a fire, okay? This is where the power lays within you, okay? You can do these few steps that I'm going to take you through right now, and it immediately helps. And I can't tell you how many times that I have used these in the past, however many years since I learnt them. And I think I learnt them maybe, I'm guessing, I think it's about 14 years ago, and I've used them countless amounts of times and have been so grateful that I had this tool that I could jump into and do because holy cow, has it been very powerful. So the first step is recognize that this situation has pushed your buttons. You can't go into this, what I'm going to take you through, and benefit from it unless you do this step. If you stay in a place of blame and anger, it's going to block you from being able to do this. I promise you, you won't be able to move through it. So, you know, if you're in blame and anger, you're like, stop making me look at your bloody spot fires. I'm not interested. With big kind of, you know, flames coming out of your head. So we're going to take responsibility for the fact that our buttons have been pushed. It doesn't hurt, so you can do that. Take responsibility, right? Very often I'll say to myself, that's interesting. That really, really pushed my buttons. I wonder what's behind that. In other words, what belief system drove that? What belief system sits there and drove me to trigger to that thing, person, place, expression, whatever it was? Because when you can work out what drives it and what belief system sits at the bottom of that process and that overreaction, then you can unbecome it. You can unbecome the belief. And then you're not the belief anymore, right? So the trigger no longer happens and you are then in true freedom from that. So the person can show you their spot fire and you'll be neutral to it. Not indifferent, just neutral and calm. There'll be no trigger, no impact, okay? So step one, recognize that this has pushed your buttons. Done. Step two, bring all your attention to your senses. Hearing, sight, smell, taste and touch, okay? Notice how this experience makes you feel in your body, mind and emotionally. So maybe you'll find that words and feelings come up for you, like, or you'll just feel it, you'll notice it, you'll hear it maybe frustrated, scared, tension, stuck, angry. They all might come up for you, plus a whole heap more, right? That's just the common ones that I notice that I myself or others would notice in that moment. So what you're doing is you're connecting with it, and that's important. And you want to come to the present moment with that experience. You're not off writing your shopping list and trying to do that at the same time. Okay? And I wouldn't recommend trying to drive your car and doing this at the same time. So find the time to do this. That's what you're gonna notice is your experience from interacting with the spot fire and the person, if there is a person in fact connected to it, and then the effect that it's currently having within you. All right, remember, there's no right or wrong as to what words come up or how it's making you feel. It's just your own individual experience. Then the third step is in your mind's eye, your imagination. You're going to see yourself here in your body-mind complex. So you're going to picture yourself, all of you, your entire body-mind complex. And you're also going to see the spot fire, the person and the issue that they present in front of you. And you're just going to notice how that makes you feel in your body, right? Is it restricted? Do you notice restriction? Do you notice that it's tense? Do you notice agitation, fear, anger, aggressiveness, sadness? It could even be guilt. What's the other one that I was thinking of? Grief. Anything. Could be anything, right? You might experience a whole barrage of things depending on what it is. And don't be frightened really doing that, connecting with that, with your senses. It's not going to hurt you, okay? If anything, you're doing the steps so completely that you really will get the benefits out of it the most. As opposed to if you just skip through the steps, really not present to it, or putting half-hearted kind of experience into it. The fourth step is now the next step can be done also in your mind's eye, in your imagination, and you might find it better to have your eyes closed and really imagining this in your mind's eye when you do this. Or if you're really good with accessing your imagination in your mind's eye while your eyes are open, you can do it the same, like both with your eyes open or closed. It doesn't matter, but it's just where you're comfortable and what works for you. So I can do both. But only because I access my mind's eye, my imagination every day for work. So you're going to be using your imagination for this, but I also want to encourage you to do this physically. And I'm here to tell you that if you do this physically, this next step, and in your mind's eye as well, it is going to be really, really effective. So you're going to be seeing in your mind's eye this spot fire in front of you. You're noticing how this makes you feel. And now you're going to take a big step backwards away from the issue. And I've just realized I have a chair behind me. I think there's a cat on there. All right, so let me come up close. You're going to take a big step backwards in your imagination, and you're going to do that physically. And I want you to stand there and then notice how that makes you feel. What you will notice is a change of some kind. And if you're still feeling all those feelings, then you're going to take another step back behind those feelings, right? The key point here is that you understand you're taking a step back behind those feelings and the issue. You're not taking it with you. It doesn't come with you. It stays there. You are stepping back out and behind it. Okay? So you can just take another step backwards if necessary. Don't rush this step. Don't assume how many steps you'll need. Don't assume that if it's a big issue that you'll need a lot of steps. That's just absolutely not the case at all. And just take another step backwards and notice how you feel. You will get to a place where you notice that you feel like you are not connected to the spot fire anymore, nor are you connected to any of those feelings and bodily experiences that you were having. And when I say to people, explain to me how you feel right now, the words that usually come up for them are, I feel light, I feel peaceful, at ease, happy, contented. They're the really common ones. You might have other ones that come up for you. When you get into this place, this is where you want to stay, and you can now go about your day, but you've been able to successfully disassociate from the spot fire, the overreaction to the spot fire, or the way that that had been affecting you, and any potential unconscious kind of connections that had built between you and the issue or the person. And that does happen. Entanglement does happen. So you can use this technique over again and again. You might notice that that particular issue, that it never becomes an issue for you again, that it doesn't bother you. They can bring up the issue and it's a bit like a non-event. Again, you're not indifferent to it, you're just very neutral to it. It's here nor there for you. Everyone's quite different, so but you might need to come back and that this gets addressed again. You can also use the same technique for other situations where you're in and a spot fire gets presented and you just need to get some distance from it, right? Now, to close you out, it's important to know that we are all going through a period of time where you and others are going to be sucked into spot fires. You might create them, you might notice them around others. This is a massively huge process that's going to continue to be there in our realities and happening for a while until we move through this process that we're all in and some peace starts to find its way back into balance for us all again. But at least now you'll recognize that they are not freight trains coming for you, just spot fires. And you have tools and insight into how to navigate this all now. I hope you find the same kind of powerful release that I found each time in that stepping back technique that I shared with you. You're invited to click the subscribe button and the little bell button here to get notified when I drop another video in for you. If you have any questions at all, please pop them down into the comments, and there's going to be a link down there somewhere to my site just if you need to get in contact with me or find out a little bit more about me. Till next time, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.